Hi, welcome back to my channel. Glad you're here. And today I want to talk about how buying a car can turn from a dream come true into a financial nightmare if you aren't careful, and some of the ways you can protect yourself from that. Now, this is a puzzle with a lot of different pieces, so please stay till the end where you'll have the full picture and the best opportunity to protect yourself, and future you will thank you. Now, quick disclaimer, I am going to be talking about car dealerships and car dealers in this a little bit. And just like everything else in life, there are really great ones and there are not so great ones and everything in between. The important thing is to remember that even a good car from a good car dealer can turn into a nightmare if you aren't careful. And that is what I want to help you prevent with this video. Now, how does this dream become a nightmare? One of the first things you need to understand is that as soon as you sign those documents and drive off the lot, that car and that loan and those payments aren't really the dealer's problem anymore. They got their money, they are on to the next thing, and even if they kind of have the sinking suspicion that you've bitten off more than you can chew and that those payments are really high and that vehicle's going to depreciate and all of this stuff, it's like, that's between you and the bank. So, and it's not malicious. It's just how the business works. The next thing to understand is that even with terrible credit, there's probably someone out there who will be willing to sell you a car and even help you get financing for it. But rather than being a reassurance, this should be a little bit terrifying, because the kind of vehicles and especially the kind of loans that you may find yourself getting in if you go to purchase a vehicle when your credit is in a bad spot are not loans that you want to be in. A good rate on a car loan right now would be in the 5 to 7% range, but if your credit is in a bad spot and you've got other things that are making it difficult to get those kind of rates, you may be looking at rates of 18%, 25%, 30%, or even more. And there are some very serious problems that are created when you get into a car with a car loan that's at 30%. Now, a lot of people, they will justify this to themselves and say, hey, my credit will be back up sometime here soon, and then I'll just refinance and it'll be okay. I won't have this 30% rate for very long. But credit improves slowly, and that's if you know what you're doing and under the best of circumstances. But even if it does improve, you still might not be able to refinance because cars lose value. This is what's called depreciation. And so when you have that high interest rate and you have a vehicle which is losing value, the speed at which you are paying your loan down is very often far less than the speed at which your vehicle is losing value, which can land you in a very difficult position without you even realizing that it's happening. Now, you might say that all of this is manageable as long as life goes smoothly. Well, I don't know about you, but life, in my experience, never tends to run smoothly for all that long. Cars break down, people get sick, we change jobs, all kinds of things can happen. You have a deer jump in front of your car, and suddenly that plan to get out of that 30% loan that was only temporary isn't happening because life decided not to cooperate. What I'm essentially saying is that a bad car loan is kind of like a fish trap. It's easy to get in, very painful and difficult to get out. Now, the real sad part is that we are part of the construction of the fish trap. We tell ourselves all kinds of things that get us into these situations. For example, it's an emergency. I can't just not have a car. So if I have to get a car, I might as well get one that I like. Or 30% isn't that bad. I'll just refinance it when my credit comes back up. Or I deserve something nice that shows that I value myself. And that's how we participate in building the trap that will ultimately take us prisoner. Now, let me show you how this can play out in real life. Some of you may have been in this situation before, or may be in this situation right now, or you may have friends or loved ones who are struggling with this type of nightmare car loan situation. So the details that I'm going to share here can vary from person to person and situation to situation, but the core ideas, the pattern is the same. Let's imagine you hit a rough patch. Medical emergency, family emergency, job loss. It could be any number of things. Okay? Due to this rough patch, you get behind on some bills. And in getting behind on some bills, your credit takes a hit and drops into the 500s. The good news is that at least you've got your car. Your car works and it's paid off, and that's the silver lining that's gotten you through all of this. And then one night you're driving and a deer jumps in front of your car and it's totaled. Now, because your vehicle was paid off and because things have been kind of tight, you dropped your insurance coverage down to just liability only. And so there is no payout coming. So you now have no car and you have nothing to help you get into a new one. And your credit is in a bad spot. So what are you going to do? Because you need a car. You've got to get to work. You've got to be able to do all the things that a car lets you do. And unfortunately, circumstances have landed you in a situation where solving that problem, getting a vehicle, is not going to be easy. Because your credit is so low, your normal lender can't help you. But you see online or you hear from somebody that there are some car dealerships that are offering, hey, bad credit, no problem, we can help. The bad news is it's a 30% rate on that car loan, but that's okay. It's only temporary because your credit was good before, and so it'll come back up. You just need to get through this next, 6, 12 months until your credit recovers, and you can go in and refinance. And the dealership is even going to help you out. They'll push the loan term out and things so that your payment is nice and low, and everything's going to be fine. 12 months later, your credit has improved. And so you head in to your financial institution to refinance and get away from that awful 30% nightmare loan, only to realize that the nightmare is just getting started. When they go to pull the vehicle as part of your refinance application, the numbers tell a very scary story. So let's say that you have been paying about $600 a month towards this car loan. That's about $7,200 in the last 12 months that you have paid. However, because your interest rate on that loan is so high, about $480 of each payment is going to interest, which means that your loan has only been paid down about $1,500, even though you've paid $7,200. And while they're running your refinance application, they find that your vehicle has lost about $6,000 of value over the last 12 months since you bought it. What this means is that you are now $4,500 upside down, meaning you owe $4,500 more on this vehicle than that vehicle is worth. That is a big problem because let's say that you paid $20,000 for the vehicle when you originally bought it. It's now only worth $14,000, but you owe $18,500 because you only paid the loan down $1,500 of principal and the rest went to interest. That means that this vehicle, if you refinanced it and got an $18,500 loan on a vehicle that's only worth $14,000, that is 132% loan to value. Most lenders aren't going to touch that. Essentially what that means is that you're asking a lender to give you 32% more than the value of the vehicle. And from a lender's perspective, that's a really good way to lose money. And if you lose too much money as a lender, you go out of business. So your refinance dreams are crumbling before your eyes, and you also now are realizing that the clock is against you. And this 30% loan, coupled with the depreciation of the vehicle over time, has you trapped. Then you lose your job. And all that work you did to build your credit up to where refinancing would maybe be an option, only to be thwarted by finding out you're upside down in the vehicle. Now your credit is back in the 500s and you're still upside down, and it's getting worse because that 30% loan is still in place and the vehicle is continuing to lose value, and you don't have any income because you've lost your job and you can't afford these $600 a month payments. And so now what? What do you do? How do you wake up from this nightmare? Let's look at your options. And unfortunately, none of them are good. You could do a voluntary surrender, which is where you voluntarily give the car back to the lender because you can't make the payments anymore and you just need to be done with it. A couple of major problems with this. One, the lender doesn't want the car. They want the payments. They want the loan paid off. They didn't sell you the car. They're not a car dealer. They're a lender. And so now they have to take this car and turn it into money so that they can pay off this now bad loan and recover as much as possible. So they're going to try to do that fast, which means they're not holding out for top dollar, because every day that this loan is bad, it's costing them money. They might have to be storing the vehicle, all kinds of issues like that. So they're going to try and sell it quickly, recover as much as they can. And let's say you give the car back, they sell it at auction, but it only gets $10,000. Now remember, the loan is still at $18,500. So if they sell it at auction and they only recover $10,000, you now still owe $8,500 on a vehicle you no longer have. That is going to get reported to your credit as a deficiency, it's called, which is the amount that you borrowed and still owed, less the amount that the lender was able to recover. Now that is going to continue to jam up your credit until either you pay it off or you wait the statute of limitations around 7 years for it to fall off. Either way, giving the car back does not actually get you out of this nightmare. You could also look at doing a trade-in. However, you're underwater on the vehicle and your credit is bad. And right now you don't have a job, but even if you start working again, your credit's still going to be damaged. The vehicle is still going to be underwater, and dealerships tend not to give a great deal on trade-ins. So whatever new vehicle you get is still probably going to have a very high interest rate, and you are now going to be starting underwater right out of the gate with your new vehicle. The last two options are probably the best, which is to do a private party sale. Private party sale is where you try to sell the vehicle yourself to someone who is willing to buy it from you. That can be difficult because, again, they're probably going to check the value on the vehicle, see that it's upside down, but you'll probably get the highest price that way, so you'll have the smallest deficit to try to close. Closing that deficit isn't going to be easy though, because let's say you're able to sell it for $15,000, but you still owe $18,500. That's a $3,500 deficit you're going to have to close One way that people do that is they take out a loan for the deficit. That way they are able to sell the vehicle, the person pays it off, you now just take the difference there as a loan and you're paying on that, but at least the car is able to get transferred to the new owner and you're out from under that car loan. And all you have now are payments on $3,500. Unfortunately, if your credit is in the tank, it's not going to be easy to get a loan for $3,500. That might not be an option. So unless you can borrow money from grandma or your tax refund is around the corner, you might not be able to close that deficit, and a private party sale might not be in the cards. Which brings us to the last option, which is to just stick it out. You're stuck, and try as best you can to make those payments, make extra payments, get ahead of that depreciation curve, and try to get back to where the vehicle is no longer underwater. And that's not easy, especially if, you have lost your job, you've lost income, you've fallen behind even more. But that is the nightmare in which we find ourselves. This situation is so brutal because once you're in it, there are almost no good ways out. Obviously, the best option is not to get in the trap in the first place. If you are in the trap already, or you know someone who is in this trap, then the best option is to try to arrange a private party sale as quickly as possible, because the more time passes, the worse it's going to get. So being proactive, trying to make extra payments, you've got to do something, because otherwise things are only going to get worse. I hope this helps, and I hope for any of you who are in this situation right now, this is giving you some useful guidance. And for any of you who are not in this situation, it helps you to stay out. Thank you for coming by. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you found this information useful, and I'll see you in the next one.